In this video, we are going to be looking at a step-by-step guide to writing chemical formula. Before you start, I will need you to take out a piece of writing paper as well as your writing material. Now once you are ready, we will start with the lesson. Now in today's lesson, we're going to be learning on how to write chemical formulas. But before we even learn how to write chemical formula, the first thing that we need to do in order for us to write down chemical formula is to first determine whether a substance is an element, is a covalent compound, or an ionic compound. Okay, because the way to writing the chemical formula for an element, covalent compound, and ionic compound, they are different. So on your piece of paper, I will want you to divide it into 3 parts. One column for element, one column for covalent compounds, and another column for ionic compound. And once you're done with that, we shall continue. So how do we determine then whether or not a substance is an element, covalent compound, or an ionic compound? Now first of all, elements are the simplest for us to identify. Why is that so? Now all the elements, right, that is found can be found in the periodic table. So usually elements, they are just a single word. So for example, your hydrogen, your nitrogen, potassium, neon, and every other thing that you see in your periodic table. Right? So all those are elements. What about covalent compound and ionic compounds then? Now previously, you have learned in the chapter on chemical bonding on the difference between your ionic compound as well as your covalent compound. So just a recap, ionic compound consists of a metal and a non-metal. In this case, right, the metal will be a positive metal ion, and then the non-metal will be a negative non-metal ion. And for compounds, right, usually the name will be 2 words or more. Alright, usually, of course there are some exceptions. So for example, potassium chloride or magnesium oxide. So for us to identify whether or not it is a metal ion that's present in the ionic compound, what we need to do is to take a look at the first word. Alright, we'll take a look at the first word. So what do I mean by that? Now you take for example potassium chloride. So potassium chloride, right, the first word is potassium. So usually if this is an ionic compound, the first word is going to be a metal. So potassium is a metal. Chloride comes from chlorine, is a non-metal. So metal and non-metal, this is an ionic compound. And for magnesium oxide, consists of magnesium ion, oxide ion. So magnesium is a metal, oxide comes from oxygen, which is a non-metal, so this is an ionic compound. Of course, there's an exception when ammonium ion, in the case of the ammonium ion, okay, although ammonium ion does not contain any metal, ammonium ion itself, right, if it forms a compound such as ammonium chloride, it is still a ionic compound. And of course, last but not least, how do we identify a covalent compound? Covalent compound consists of non-metal and non-metal atoms. So usually what we do is that we just look at the name again, and we will just determine by looking at the name itself. So usually the name of a covalent compound can be any number of words. Okay, so some example is your nitrogen dioxide, sulfur trioxide, methane. And take note, for covalent compound, right, first word usually is a non-metal. So take a look, nitrogen dioxide. Nitrogen is a non-metal. Dioxide is basically comes from oxygen. So this is a non-metal covalent compound. Sulfur trioxide, first word sulfur is a non-metal. Trioxide comes from oxygen. So non-metal covalent compound. So this is what we have gathered so far. Elements, usually just a single word found in your periodic table. Covalent compound consists of a non-metal and non-metal, can contain any number of words. Just take a look at the first word. If let's say the name of the compound has 2 words, and then you should be able to determine, okay, whether or not it is a covalent compound. And of course, lastly, for ionic compound, it's made out of a metal and non-metal, usually 2 words or more, and you just need to take a look out for the first word. Usually, if the first word is a metal, then it's a ionic compound. Okay, so this is what we have gathered so far. Now, we are going to take a look at how to write the chemical formula if a substance is an element. Okay, your first column. So, how do we write the chemical formula of a substance if it is an element? Now, if a substance is an element, right, it is very simple. In order for us to write down the chemical formula is basically just the chemical symbol. So all you need to do is go and take a look at your periodic table. So for example, if you go and take a look at periodic table, right, and you are asked to write down the chemical formula for lead, you go to a periodic table, you should be able to see that the chemical symbol for lead is Pb. So the chemical formula is also just Pb. And magnesium, another example, for magnesium, go to a periodic table, you should be able to see that magnesium, right, has a chemical symbol of Mg, so the chemical formula is just Mg. And of course the same for neon, chemical symbol Na, chemical formula is Na. Now take note, these 3 are element: magnesium, neon, and lead. Okay, you should be able to find this in the periodic table. However, there are some exceptions. Okay, the following elements, right, that I'm going to show you exist as diatomic molecule, and the chemical symbol will be written as a X2. So instead of just the chemical symbol, right, you need to add a subscript 2 at the bottom. This is because they exist as diatomic molecule. That means that 2 of the atoms will chemically combine to form a molecule. Okay, so what are these elements that are of the exception? These are the elements that are of the exception. You may want to take out your periodic table and highlight them. Okay, so it forms a 7 in your periodic table. Plus hydrogen. So hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and all the group 7 elements, they all exist as diatomic molecule. So let's take a look at how we can write their chemical formula. So for example, if you're asked to write a chemical formula for nitrogen, it will be a N2. Chemical formula for oxygen will be a O2. Chemical formula for chlorine will be a Cl2. Okay, so basically this is the simplest out of the 3 different classes of substances. So this is how you write the chemical formula for elements.